Because, I mean, really, seriously, all banks have to define a new role into tomorrow's financial world. Because what they have been doing most of the time now, I mean, moving money around very slowly, very expensively. I mean, we don't need that any longer. Bitcoin is so much better at doing that. Once you tried it out, you will agree. It's really like sending an email compared to sending a letter by horse carriage. And on top of that, the current financial regime we live under, it has so many flaws. It has led to so many bubbles, to so much injustice, to so much unfair distribution of wealth. I'm not so sad that it will collapse soon, and it will. I mean, I know some very good AI experts, and they say the financial system will collapse in the second quarter of 2014. I don't know. But when it happens, I don't say if, I say when it happens, it's good to be prepared. And it's so good that we have a much, much better alternative. And that's what we talk about now. In case you're not so familiar with Bitcoin, we have a little movie that explains it. It's kind of an ad in the end. So, sorry, we did that for a client, for Bitcoin Germany. But 80% of the movies just explains what Bitcoin is. And if you know already what Bitcoin is, just watch it anyway and enjoy the German humor. Film ab bitte, Licht aus. It sounds like it.
Welcome. My name is Dr. Münzmacher. I'm an expert in the new digital currency Bitcoin. Unlike euros, dollars or other monopoly money, Bitcoins are not created out of thin air by a central bank. That means no inflation. Believe me, we had lots of inflation here in Germany and we never want that again. So, if there's no central bank, where do Bitcoins come from? Well, everybody can create Bitcoins by using a special software. But it's not easy, just like finding a gold nugget in a ton of earth. I would love to tell you all the details of the cryptographic algorithms behind it.
No, please don't bore your audience.
No, Hermann. I just want to explain the advantages. The amount of bitcoins is limited. That's why there can never be a bitcoin inflation. It's very cheap to transfer bitcoins from one part of the world to another, just like sending an email. Bitcoins are like cash. So if you want to pay for something, without any data-hungry monster knowing about it, bitcoins protect your privacy.
But don't forget to pay your taxes.
But the fact that bitcoins are like cash has one disadvantage. If your computer crashes, all your bitcoins will be lost. That's why we from Bitcoin Deutschland are offering a secure account for your bitcoins on our servers. Our platform is very safe and reliable. German technology. The main purpose of bitcoin.de is to buy and sell bitcoins from other users, not only in Germany but worldwide. And our software developers are working hard on more great tools for the future of money.
And then we will rule the world.
No, stupid. Those times are over. We want our customers to be happy and money to be sound and trustworthy, just like us.
So what we will do now, we'll have 4 very short talks, 10 minutes each of the panelists. I've been traveling the world last year. I've been to 6 Bitcoin conferences to bring you the best Bitcoin speakers of the Bitcoin universe. Our first speaker is P.Šurda. I met him at so many Bitcoin conferences. He's an economist. He's doing research, serious economic research about Bitcoin. So he will talk about the economy of Bitcoin. Peter, stage is yours.
Thank you, everyone. As Aaron said, I'm researching Bitcoin and I specialize in the economics. I've been doing that for almost 3 years. I see that the audience is not full, so my guess is that the Bitcoin skeptics are somewhere else and don't care about it, and I might be just preaching to the choir. Yep, so can I have the first slide, please? Okay. No, so can you go to next page? Or where's the clicker? Here. That's the wrong. Sorry about that. Okay, so first I want to say something about the microeconomics, but it will be very short because my friends here will, each of them will contribute their own perspective on this. So I'll just quickly say that the advantage of Bitcoin is, the economists call it reduction of transaction costs. What does that mean? That basically means that now that we have Bitcoin, it's easier to trade. Some trades that couldn't happen because it was too expensive to transport or to verify, audit, that's now easier. Some of those couldn't happen at all. Some of those would have been at a lower profit margin or wouldn't be profitable at all. So it makes it possible to pay faster, to pay cheaper. You have more control over your money. There's no easy way to block if you're trying to pay someone. And the term that I like very much, presented by Eli Dorado, he's an economist as well, he calls it permissionless innovation. That means if you want to use or innovate using Bitcoin, you don't need to ask anybody for a permission. If you want to innovate, let's say with credit cards, you need to talk to MasterCard, you need to call to your you need to talk to your bank, you need to find a payment processor, and then maybe when all of them agree, you might do something. With Bitcoin, you don't need to ask anybody. Apart from just the advantages in payments, it also has much further advantages in all kinds of things that have to do with contracts and enforcement of property rights. For example, dispute resolution or proof of ownership. Services like this will become much more efficient with Bitcoin. Some people say that there's a problem in that volatility of the price of Bitcoin makes it more difficult to use it, but Rodolfo will explain us that it depends on the situation. Now, I'll talk a bit more about macroeconomics because when I started researching this, all kinds of macroeconomic claims have been done about Bitcoin. I thought, wait a minute, this sounds very strange. So I started researching this. Now let's get to the facts. What does it mean? What Bitcoin means from macroeconomic perspective. It's so-called inelastic supply, which we just saw in the video before. That means if there's a change in demand for Bitcoin, it needs to reflect itself in the price. The supply cannot adjust. So this has an effect. If there's a sudden change in demand, it means that the price will be volatile. It also means that it leads to separation of money and credit. Basically, nowadays what we mostly use in electronic payments, such as credit cards or even bank transfers in general, that's all debt, that's credit. With Bitcoin, it doesn't work like that. It's kind of a commodity like gold, but you can send it over the internet. Now, if you put these two things together, most of the mainstream economists would say that's a really bad thing, because if you have an inelastic supply, then the price will go up, then that leads to hoarding, that's bad for the economy. I can't answer this question now because it's very complicated, but I'll just say one reason why that might not actually be true. If that was true, then Bitcoin already wouldn't have worked. Nobody would use it, but they're using it. And there's a whole bunch of additional problems that macroeconomists see, but the main reason why it doesn't probably even matter whether they're right or wrong is that this criticism depends on the so-called unit of account function. That means that people will base their pricing, the prices that they ask and the prices that they pay for their supplies would be denominated in this unit. But it turns out that even if Bitcoin is a major success, it might never actually have this function, because the central banks have a lot of way in deciding what people may or may not use as a unit of account. Plus, there are international accounting regulations, prescriptions, which restrict what you can use. And basically, if Bitcoin was a unit of account, that pretty much means that the dollar would have to collapse, the euro would have to collapse, the yuan would have to collapse, and even then it's not sure that what would replace them as a unit of account is Bitcoin. So unless you really believe that all of these things would collapse, even if you're a macroeconomist, you don't believe in Bitcoin, you shouldn't worry because it's not an issue. Oh, okay. What can we expect in the future from Bitcoin? There are two main areas which or variables that we need to investigate in order to analyze what would happen with Bitcoin. The first one is liquidity, which if I have to describe to a non-economist, it means how easy is it to dispose of Bitcoin at economic prices. You can go to exchanges, they trade often 24/7, an increasing number of merchants accept Bitcoins as a payment method, so this all increases liquidity. And also another thing that might be interesting is that since Bitcoin, there's no need for permission when you want to innovate, Bitcoin is actually relatively easy to integrate into your accounting system. So whenever you pay or receive payments, it can automatically reflect itself in your accounting. So that's a good thing for companies that do a lot of payments. And the second thing is the medium of exchange function. You might ask, wait a minute, didn't you just talk about that? Well, from economic point of view, the medium of exchange function actually means how comfortable are people with holding Bitcoin in this case as part of their liquidity portfolio. People keep, let's say, euros or the dollars, not because they want to use them or because they want to earn money, but because they know they will have expenses in the future, and the euros and dollars provide them the comfort that if they have enough of them, they might be able to pay for these unforeseen expenses. So the more people view Bitcoin as this and are willing to keep it, the better for the future of Bitcoin. I don't know to what extent this will happen. Let's say I see it a bit positively, but we don't know. This is an empirical question. Yep, that's about it. I'll leave more time for the others. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. We can ask questions later, of course. We have some time for questions. Now I would like to ask on stage Margaux Avedisian from New York. We met at the San Jose conference. She now works, she had built up the first American, hello, Your Royal Highness, the first American Bitcoin exchange, Trade Hill. She now works at Bitcoin Capital Partners. So if you want to buy, let's say, 100 Bitcoins, just ask Margaux. She can help you. And she consults a number of Bitcoin companies, Laserbee and the movie, and so many projects. I will not remember all of them. And she will talk about a very practical, useful thing. Margaux.
Thank you. So this is meant to be a brief overview of a very complicated subject. So remittance, it's the transfer of money from a foreign worker to their home country. Last year, there's over $550 billion sent globally, and $414 billion of those dollars were to developing countries. And there are about 232 million migrant workers, which is about 3% of the world population. And this is according to the World Bank. So the largest countries that are receiving remittances are India, China, the Philippines, and Mexico. Tajikistan, Liberia, Kyrgyz Republic, Lesotho, Moldova, they receive most of a share of their GDP. So they depend on remittances for their economy. And the largest countries that send remittances are the United States, Russia, and Saudi Arabia. So how do you transfer money internationally? You can do that with a bank, though a third of the world is underbanked and don't have traditional banking methods like developing countries do, or people who actually are not, who have a lot of money, not this demographic. Western Union, MoneyGram, online, mom and pop money transfer operators, these are the ways people are sending money internationally. So what are the problems? It's not immediate. It usually takes around 3 days to receive money. We're used to things being immediate with text, emails. Why is money not immediate? It's also very expensive. The average remittance fee is 8.93%. And that's a lot of money for this demographic. In Africa, for example, it's around 12 to 13%. If this was reduced by 5%, that would be an extra $16 billion going to these developing countries. So Bitcoin. Bitcoin is three things. It's a virtual currency, which you've all probably heard about. It could be a store of value like gold, but it's also a protocol, a set of rules. It's a way to transfer money peer to peer. And that's what really makes Bitcoin exciting. It's a lot cheaper to do this. It's essentially free unless you're sending really small amounts, then it's around 45 cents. It's really fast. It takes about 10 minutes to get a confirmation. There's no limit on the amount of money you can send. There's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin. Right now, there's around 12 million in circulation. So there's not going to be more Bitcoin added. And you don't need a bank account. All you really need is a wallet address. And it's really easy to set one up. So what are some of the limitations? Whoops. First of all, Bitcoin's very new. It started in 2009, and within the last year, we've seen a lot of growth. Right now, the regulatory environment is starting to take shape. In America, it's been actually very favorable. FinCEN, which is Financial Crimes Unit, part of the Treasury, has said Bitcoin, or has suggested Bitcoin as a virtual currency, which essentially means it's treated like a currency. There just isn't really a physical manifestation of it. What that means, though, is Bitcoin exchanges now need to follow the same rules that currencies would follow. So if you have a Bitcoin exchange, you now need a money transmitter license from each state, except for, I think, 3 don't require one. This is really expensive, and it's a whole long process trying to get one. And currently, there are no American Bitcoin exchanges that are operating. And this is mostly the reason. As you see in China, a lot of people like to say China's anti-Bitcoin. If China wanted to stop Bitcoin, they would stop Bitcoin. Right now, I think they're trying to get a handle on what's going on. One of the largest Bitcoin exchanges is still operating in China. What they did was they stopped third parties from allowing money into the exchange. But they just made it so you can deposit cash. But as you see around the world, all these countries are starting to figure out what they think about Bitcoin. So like I mentioned, exchanges, that's a big problem in order to buy Bitcoin to send. For example, if a migrant worker was sending Bitcoin to Mexico, how are they going to convert that now to their fiat currency? There are a lot more companies accepting Bitcoin as payment, but we're not there yet. I know there is a Mexico exchange that is starting up, I believe, next month, but the infrastructure needs to be built. And that's going to take some time. And so getting money in and out is another issue of how to buy Bitcoin and then exchange it for whatever currency you need. So Bitcoin and remittance. What's really exciting is that mobile phones, 3/4 of the world has a mobile phone. There are more mobile phones in Mexico than there are people. And so this is definitely going to be a way people are going to be sending Bitcoin. Coinapol is a American company, or they're based in New York, now they're in Panama, and they make it easy to send Bitcoin to a phone number or email address, or via SMS, opposed to the Bitcoin wallet address. And Bitcoin ATMs and kiosks are popping up. There's a couple in Canada, and it was announced there are going to be 2 in China. So this is a really easy way to get money in and out. And I just want to clarify, too, that there are a lot of regulations in America to follow the rules. So to do business in America with a Bitcoin company, you need to be KYC. The company needs to know who you are. You need to be verified. So there are a lot of, I wouldn't call it restrictions, but there are a lot of rules you need to follow to prevent illegal activities from happening. And what I've been seeing around the world, and it's kind of exploding right now, are in-person exchanges. And this is really exciting because this is making it possible for people to easily buy Bitcoin. In New York, there's something called Satoshi Square. It's every Monday. People meet, and used to be Whole Foods. Now it's at the Bitcoin Resource Center. And you hand over cash to someone, and they send you Bitcoin on their mobile phone. I know they had one in London a couple days ago, and it was a huge success, and they're doing it again. They do it in South America, they do it in Africa, they're doing it all around the world. And people are starting to come together to unify them, which is really interesting. So a couple Bitcoin companies that are doing remittance stuff. If you were at the last panel, Circle really wants to help disrupt that space. I don't know exactly what they're doing, but Kapachi is in Africa, and they have already launched, and it's a way to send Bitcoin via mobile phone, and they partner with M-Pesa. And in Africa, it's very common for people to send money with their mobile phone, so this wasn't that far of a stretch. And people are using it, and it has a very low fee. Another company is BitPesa. They haven't launched yet. They're also going to be in Africa, but they're coming from the United States. So the money's coming from the United States to Africa. So that's a little more tricky with regulation stuff. But it's also really interesting. They're supposed to start, I think they're going to launch next month. And then HelloBit is also an American company, and they're combining in-person exchanges with mobile technology. And I believe they're going to start in Argentina, and they're also supposed to start next week or next month. But what's really going to change the game, in my opinion, is BitPay. So BitPay is the largest merchant processor. They have over 12,000 online merchants, many that you know and probably use, and also 1,000 brick and mortar. But what they're doing, they just announced that they are going to have a payroll company that allows companies to pay their employees in Bitcoin. So they take the taxes out of the fiat currency, and then essentially they're selling their Bitcoin to companies. It's kind of brilliant. And now you can pay employees in other countries very easily. I don't know if you've ever tried to pay someone in another country. It's expensive and difficult and all those things I talked about earlier. So this is going to put Bitcoin in hands of people that aren't necessarily able to buy Bitcoin. So it's very new, this space, and there's a long way to go, but we already see how it could really affect people on a global scale and help save money for people who are already trying to scrape by to send their family what little they do get. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Please have a seat. Oh yeah, okay. And our next speaker is from Buenos Aires, Argentina, Rodolfo Andragnes. Hola. He is introducing himself, I think. I can't do it any better than him. But he made us, I think, the best Bitcoin conference last year in Buenos Aires. He invited me, I invited him, so welcome.
I want to thank I would like to thank DLD to taking this vision of introducing Bitcoin in this community, which is the developers and people thinking in mobile. Bitcoin, as she said, will be exploding in the mobile. In mobile. So I really think this is something that everybody should be thinking about. Why I am here? Why are we talking about a case study in Argentina? Because for the Bitcoin community, Argentina is a very special place. Everybody thinks, well, in Argentina, Bitcoin will explode. And why is that? Because Bitcoin is something that is not about with obligation to go into and to decide to have it, but you have to take your own decision of being part of the Bitcoin community. And in our case, as you will see in Argentina, all the country has gone into several issues and economic disasters that makes the whole country relevantly interested, yes, in something like Bitcoins, which brings anti-inflation situations and I mean, it brings some solutions to things that we have been suffering during our short life, and that's my case. I decided to do this self-defense against financial repression as a personal situation. Yes, it's all about me. So you will know me a little bit better, yes? I'm Argentinian, as I said. I live in Buenos Aires, porteño, as he likes to call me. 36-year-old, happily married with 2 kids, and that's very relevant in my situation, and perhaps in yours if you decide to go into Bitcoin. Co-founder of the Bitcoin Foundation in Argentina, and that's also something difficult to do, to talk in Argentina about something that is about freedom and economic freedom, and a business owner. So being an Argentinian today, it's when at 25 it's old, it's about 30% annual inflation. Yes, 35% annual inflation. For people here, you would say, what? How do you live with 30%? You just live. You just go to the you go to the shopping and you buy expensive every time. As you waste less money than the one that you earn, you just I don't know how to say it, but you have less money for saving, but you just go and buy because you cannot buy. So you live with a 30% annual inflation. We have a decay in central bank reserves. That's relevant. I mean, you must believe in your country, in the chances that your country has to fulfill his debts. Yes. Otherwise, you will say, hey, there is a crisis on stage. But when we having half the reserves that we had 5 years ago. So it's really a difficult issue. This about the amount of dollars that we have. We have about $29,000 million in our reserves. It's monthly decaying. No access to foreign currencies. You can't buy dollars. It's forbidden to buy dollars. It's forbidden to buy gold. It's forbidden to buy euros. It's forbidden to buy anything that is pesos. Yes. Why? Because I have inflation. I have to print money, and I need you to hold the money. Otherwise, I would be printing, and no one would be taking the money. So if you decide to take dollars instead of pesos, yes, it wouldn't work. So it's forbidden to buy things, to buy other things that it's not money, not pesos. People hold dollars under the mattress. We are very used. We have suffered. I will show you in the next slide about my 36 years. Yes, how many times our deposits put into the bank were stolen from the bank. Yes, and no one taking responsibility about what happened. So in Argentina, most of the people is used to buy dollars, but you can't, but you buy. I mean, like in Venezuela, you buy it. I mean, you pay at 6,000% over the price, but in Argentina, you pay at 100% over the price. The formal price is at $6.9 pesos per dollar. And in Argentina, you are paying about 12 pesos per dollar, yes? Why? Where do they come from? I don't know. But there are dollars that almost any Argentinian can buy in the black market. And we're very used to this. There's a nice story that I read 1 week ago, though I don't believe in all the things I read in the newspapers, and you shouldn't either. That we sent $44 million to United States, yes, a local bank, and they kept them as if they were dollars from drugs, sales, and so, because they were very destroyed but kept. And they finally were dollars that were kept under the mattress and that went into the washing machine and things like that. So they had to give them back. Then we have a high remittances fee. We talk about 5, 6, 8%. We have a 50% remittance fee. So, and this is relevant. Me talking about Argentina Bitcoin is not about what happens here, what happens in Argentina, what happens in China. It's a global coin. Yes, it has no central bank. It has nothing that fixes to one place. So what's happened to us happens to everybody. What it's relevant for us, it's relevant for the Bitcoin community. And Bitcoin is this: it's a solution and shall be a solution for the whole world. Yes, and we are part of it. And we have a crisis every 5 or 7 years, and this is like that. In what year are we? The 7? Okay, we will have a crisis. Yes, that's the way Argentina works. And I said I had 36 years old. What have we gone through these 36 years? When we had, before 1986, we were in a military intervention. Yes, we went to war with the UK and bueno. But then we had an hyperinflation over 200% a month. And you say, how did you do? I don't know. But you just ask at the morning, and then you had to ask at the afternoon which was the price, yes, of the things. But we are still here, yes, we've been one of the wealthiest countries some time ago. Then we went from this hyperinflation to no inflation, yes, 1 peso, $1 during 10 years. And it was very, very good. We did many things as a country, but what we got into exchange, debt. We had to keep asking money, dollars from outside, yes, to keep this parity between 1 peso, $1. So we were over leverage, yes? And now we have, I don't know if you know, we have this problem not paying the debt, the people who lend us money, and well, that's a bit how Argentina works. And we also suffer corralito, yes? Does anyone knows what's corralito? Raise the hand. Corralito, this word? No? Corraliten in Deutsch. Corralitenlich. Bueno. So, corralito is something similar that what happened to Cyprus recently. Yes, they had their money into the bank. They don't have the money into the bank. There's no more money in the bank. And if you wanted to get the money, we had some kind of, you can get 100 pesos, I'm guessing, per day. Yes, and perhaps I have 12,000 pesos, and I just couldn't get the money out of the banks because the money was not in the banks. No, I mean, once you put money into the bank multiplies the money, has a fractional reserve, yes? And this happens not only in Argentina, happens in every place in the world. You put money into the bank, and that's not money. The money you have is just a number in the database of such a bank, yes? It's not real money. The only real money is the one you give to them, but not the one they give you when you have a number in the database. So when we suffered the corralito, we couldn't take the money out. Everybody who had dollars, the dollars were stolen from the bank accounts, were kept by the government, and they gave you pesos in exchange, okay? And there we started again. And since 1881, I see United States crying, we have a 92% inflation in no know how many years, 100 years. We had 1 trillion inflation. So, but we are still here, yes? And this makes you think, I mean, I am married, happily married, yes, I love my wife, and I love my kids. I have 2 kids, 9 and 6, Santiago and Itati. Itati is a local name. And it makes you think, well, what do I want for my kids? Yes, I have a responsibility here in this life and in this, at least towards my kids. I also feel that I have a responsibility toward my country. But, well, at least for my kids. And so which opportunities would I like for them? Yes, I want to work for giving them opportunities, not only work and earn money and bring money into my house. I want to know that this effort, yes, will be well kept. And so how much would I risk for it? And there is the blue and the red pill. Anyone understand what's the blue and red? Yes, matrix? Yes. We all live in a matrix. And I realize that we all live in a matrix in this sense. When I have to explain Bitcoin to another one, I first have to remove them from the matrix. I first have to make them understand that the money you have in the bank is just a number in a database. We all believe in things that we are comfort with, but they are not real, yes? So once you discover Bitcoin, but you really discover Bitcoin, you have to choose if you want to keep believing in what you believed before, or you will try to understand and live according to what Bitcoin brings to you. So that's the red pill. So how do I fight for what I believe? I did this foundation, yes. Why? For prepare our societies to seize the opportunity. Yes, Bitcoin is an opportunity. It's not only about currency. It's a decentralized platform, yes, of trusted parties. Help to build new layers of services. Yes, do not talk about only currency. Let's talk about all the other layers and services we can build over this platform and promote economic freedom. This in a hostile economic freedom place. But Bitcoin is now. I can't wait. Yes, I can't wait until Argentina is a better place for talking about Bitcoin. We have to do it, and it's now. So, no friendlier environment. What have we achieved? Bitcoin in Argentina, we have achieved one of the most active communities, over 6,000 tenants and 60 retails. You see it there, yes, and we have some big projects ongoing in Argentina that will, if they succeed, they will also be relevant for the whole world. And one of the biggest local awareness, you can ask everybody in Argentina what about, if they know about Bitcoin, and almost anybody might answer something. And I am a business owner, and I do accept Bitcoin since 2012, and I went very well. I had over 2,000% in benefits. I take Bitcoin for $40, and now they are valued $900. And this could happen again. So what about me? I understood that centralizing the minting and control of money gives power, yes, to a country, to anyone who has the control of the money, and the minting of the money gives power. Such power responds to political shifting interests. Yes, we change politics every time, and they shift their interests, and it leads to abuses, corruption, and results in economic crisis. That's what I understood because of my situation, and most Argentinians think like this. So I decided that I want to do what I please with the money I earn from my effort. I prefer to hold it in a decentralized currency, independent of the individual and local international interests, and I prefer a currency made for a borderless world, which is the world we are starting to live now. So what I propose you is to join us in this peaceful revolution. Okay?
Great. Thank you so much. And our last speaker tonight, hello. Our last speaker is Johann Gevers from Monetas. Very interesting platform. But if you want to know more about Monetas, you have to ask him individually, because he will talk really about the big picture. You got your mic, great.
So I'm going to talk about the big picture implications of these technologies for society. For millions of years, humans lived together in small, decentralized network communities of about 15 to 75 people. You might have heard of Dunbar's number. Dunbar's number refers to a human memory limit. We can remember about 150 people well. So during this time of millions of years when we lived together in these small communities, people-based trust mechanisms worked. Everybody knew everybody, and it was hard to get away with doing bad things. But then about 10,000 years ago, with the invention of agriculture, people started living together in large communities of thousands and even millions of people. This exceeded Dunbar's number. There was anonymity. People could get away with doing bad things. There was a breakdown of social order, and this created problems. We need social order to survive. So people-based trust mechanisms failed, and what stepped into the void was strongmen. To restore order, strongmen would come in. They set up top-down, hierarchical, centralized social systems. So that's what you can see on the right-hand side. Basically, one person at the top organizes the society. And then there's the corresponding abuses that go with that coercive way of organizing society. And over these last 10,000 years, these systems, social systems, have become progressively more centralized. We've seen this not just in the state, but also in the church. So belief systems and so on, all top-down organized. The Catholic Church, for example. Then, about 500 years ago, there was another technological invention, the printing press. So now, instead of the government and the church controlling what you think and controlling the flow of information, people could just print their ideas in books and newspapers, and these ideas could spread across the world. So that started a shift back from the centralized model to the decentralized model. And so today we are basically at the top, the white arrow, starting to move back to a decentralized society. So when you look at the big span of history, these last 10,000 years is really human history. So we think that we've always lived in these centralized societies, but it's really just a transition phase. For millions of years, the natural order that humans were evolved for was a decentralized social system. Then there was this transition phase, 10,000 years, And now, the last few centuries, we've been starting to shift back to a decentralized model. So with the printing press and a series of other technologies that had similar effects, we had the rise of democracy movements. Now, generally, we think that democracy is already fully established, at least in many countries. But really, we are just at the beginning of the democratic revolutions. In the olden days, we had one monarch at the top controlling what everybody did. Now we have an elite controlling what everybody can do. So we've made some progress, but we still have a long way to go. And really what's needed is a decentralization of a whole bunch of different aspects of society. And that's what we're going to look at now. What is needed is a technology of trust. So where people-based trust models do not scale beyond about 150 people, we need to develop technological ways to organize society to keep social order on the scale of millions and billions of people. So what are the key components of a technology of trust? The first pillar of a decentralized society is decentralized communications. So those were, like I mentioned, the printing press, and in more recent times, we have technologies like the internet and now Bitcoin that operate in a decentralized way that are democratizing how society works. For example, the Arab Spring phenomenon that we've seen in the last few years, made possible by technologies such as the mobile phone, Twitter, and Facebook. People can communicate independently from centralized structures, and they can control what information they have access to. They can organize in a decentralized way, and that is changing the structure of society. So the first thing is that we need decentralized communications, and the two key elements of decentralized communications are the internet and cryptography. Why is cryptography important? If you only have the internet, there's the possibility of surveillance, and as we know, it's not just a possibility, it's a reality. And essentially what surveillance does is it enables the old centralized structures to censor what we have access to and to censor what we think and believe. Because if you know that somebody is watching what you do and think, then it changes your behavior. So to truly have independence, you need to have privacy. Privacy is an absolutely essential element in free speech and free thought. So you need internet plus cryptography to enable private decentralized communications. Secondly, we need decentralized law. Because in a society, if you want to do something, first you need to agree, you need to talk about what you want to do, then you need to come to some kind of an agreement. Let's do this. And that agreement takes the shape of a contract. So traditionally, we've had centralized legal systems. A few people in government decide what the laws are, and everybody has to follow those laws, whether they like it or not, whether those laws make sense or not. So the key elements of a decentralized legal system are, number one, that when you make an agreement with somebody, you choose which law applies to your agreement. You can make your own laws that apply to your agreement. And that, surprisingly, is already in place today. We have that ability today to a large extent. Secondly, you need to be able to choose that if there's a dispute in your contract, who is going to adjudicate that dispute? And that we need to be able to do in a decentralized way. That is also possible today. And thirdly, you need to be able to enforce your contracts in a decentralized way. So those are the key elements. This is actually a big passion of mine. I've been involved in some of these efforts for many years. And what we have today essentially is a complete decentralized legal model. And there are first initiatives now to implement these in different parts of the world. And that's a whole big topic. The third element of a decentralized society is decentralized production. So there's a logical order here. First, you talk about what you want to do, decentralized communications. Then you agree what you're going to do, decentralized law. Thirdly, then you actually go and do it. You start producing the goods and services that you've agreed to do. And the key elements of decentralized production involve decentralized materials production and decentralized energy production. And there's a whole bunch of technologies there. But on the decentralized materials, there are things like nanotechnology, and most importantly, 3D printing. Now, let's just for a moment think, what's the importance of 3D printing? In the days of the pharaohs, thousands of years ago, you had a pharaoh at the top, and he had thousands of slaves that basically followed his orders. Top down, one person thinks, the others execute. And even today, we have large factories. For example, Apple's factories in China. Apple decides what needs to happen, and you have thousands of people that execute those orders. And the consequence is that what gets produced is determined by a few people. Now, it's a lot better than the days of the pharaoh, but we still have a long way to go. We can go much further. So with 3D printing, you can download a design from the internet, or you can design something yourself, and then you print it out locally at your home with a 3D printer. So no longer do you need to order something from a different country, and maybe your country doesn't allow you to have whatever that other country is selling. So that's the current situation. Centralized systems control what is produced, how it's produced, where it can go, the customs, etc. But with 3D printing, everybody can print out what they want at home in a decentralized way. So that's 3D, that's decentralized materials. And there are also technologies that will enable decentralized energy production, so that instead of being dependent on an electricity company that sends the energy across thousands of kilometers and that can be controlled in certain ways, it'll be possible in the future, in fact, in just a number of years, to produce energy at home independently to do your production process. So that's pillar number 3. And the final pillar, pillar number 4, is decentralized finance. So that's the completion of the logical chain. First, you talk about what you want to do, decentralized communications. Secondly, you agree what you want to do, decentralized law. Then you produce it, decentralized production. And finally, you want to trade what you have produced. In other words, you need a way to buy and sell. You need decentralized finance. And this is, of course, where Bitcoin comes in. So just like with the internet, where you needed the internet and cryptography, what you need for a decentralized financial system is Bitcoin, the currency, but you also need cryptography, a whole ecosystem of digital finance services that are built around this currency and that are made secure through cryptography and that are made uncensorable through cryptography. If you don't have cryptography, the old centralized structures can still censor what happens financially. But with the combination of with cryptography, these new technologies are made uncensorable, which means basically it's up to individuals what they buy and sell. So when you add that all together, we have communications, law, production, and finance, all organized in a decentralized way. And when all 4 pillars are in place, you have all the key components of a decentralized society. And then we are back to the natural order that humans lived in for millions of years. But just like that first chart showed, we are now at a higher level of the spiral. So now we can have a decentralized society of millions and even billions of people that is made secure through the technology of trust. So let's look at the 4th pillar in a little bit more detail, decentralized finance. When you think about what the financial system is, what is the fundamental construct in the financial system? Well, think about it. When you do a financial transaction, it's essentially an agreement. I will buy this from you, and in return, I'll give you a certain amount of money. So there's an agreement. So every financial transaction is a legal transaction. So essentially, the world's financial system is an interlocking network of contracts, a dynamic network of contracts. So what is being built right now in the new digital finance economy is a new system for doing these contracts. There's the emergence of universal contracting platforms that can do all types of financial and legal transactions. So why is this important? We heard earlier when Peter talked about the importance of transaction costs are really extremely important in how the economy is structured. You reduce transaction costs, and there's a huge explosion of wealth in the economy. So right now, how the world is structured, you have all these different systems. You have credit cards, you have bank accounts, you have SWIFT, you have ACH, you have PayPal, and 1,000 other ways of transferring money. They are each slow, insecure, and expensive. And they don't talk well to each other. This makes transaction costs high. So with the emergence of universal contracting platforms, where a single platform allows you to do any kind of legal and financial transactions globally with anybody, very cheaply and instantly, that really changes the game. And in fact, my company, Monetas, is one of the companies that's developing these contracting platforms. So some of the features of these new systems are, they are extremely easy to use. Somebody in Africa who has no education and has nothing except a mobile phone, no bank account, because as Margaux mentioned, most people in the world actually don't have a bank account. Half of all adults in the world, 2.5 billion people, do not have a bank account, no credit card. They can only deal face-to-face cash. But with these new systems, because they have a mobile phone, they have access for the first time to the global economy. Instead of being restricted to their small local economies, they can do business, do legal contracts and financial transactions with anybody in the world. That greatly liberates their ability to generate wealth. These new technologies also come with security and privacy that goes way beyond anything we've had until now. Now, right now, we are not there yet. What we have today, the Bitcoin is still not as easy to use and as secure as it needs to be. But these new technologies are in development, and we'll be seeing the first of these later this year. So it'll be very easy to use, very secure, and with privacy that's never been possible before. And most importantly, no need to trust third parties, because these systems are decentralized. There is no company, there's no entity that controls the Bitcoin currency or how these systems work. Basically, it's software that you download from the internet, you put it on your mobile phone, and you can transact with anybody else in the world that has that software running on their mobile phone. There's no PayPal, there's no bank, there's no central bank, there's no credit card company that you have to go through and trust with your information and your money. You have your money and your information in your own hands, and nobody else controls it. So this enables global borderless payments and trade. It has great implications for a whole bunch of existing industries. We don't have time to go through all of those, but as I mentioned, the big thing is that it enables poor people to uplift themselves. So what we will see is a great rise in wealth in developing countries. They now have the tools themselves to lift themselves up, and there'll be the emergence of a bigger middle class, less disparities between the rich and poor, which is very important for social order. The disparities right now are starting to threaten the social order. And the effect on the old centralized systems is going to be that where they in the past were monopolists that could enforce their way of doing things, they will be forced to become service providers. They'll have to compete with each other and provide services to consumers. And obviously, customers win. The vision is that we are now returning to a decentralized network society where people once again have the power in their own hands to live lives of their own choosing in peace, freedom, and prosperity. Thank you.
So I would say we open the panel to the floor. So your questions, please. I skip my own. Please. You got a mic for that gentleman?
Hello. Welcome and hello to the distinguished guests. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Chris Bausinger.
Short question, please. Short question.
I'm the founder of Bitcoin. I initiated Bitcoin in 2008, and I initiated programming the whole system and architecture. And so it's a German product. And today it's the first time I go on public by this, because I had to work on some other issues. And I would like to give you an idea why this currency was built up. First, it was a revolution against our financial system, because I was totally angry against our banking system, and I lost a lot of money. And I wanted to build up an answer to our society and to the financial markets in the States and all over the world. And by doing this, by thinking about this, and by thinking about the history...
What's the question?
I gave this network to a computer program.
This is very funny. This is very funny, but please ask a question to
My
the
question to the audience is, how do you think will Bitcoin develop in future? Thank you.
I guess I'll answer that. So I think pretty soon, maybe by next year, you'll be using Bitcoin as a settlement method without actually even knowing you're using Bitcoin. Right now, I'm sure most of you or a lot of people don't know how traditional banking sends money, and that's probably going to be the case, but it's going to be using Bitcoin in a more seamless, integrated way in how we send money and do transactions.
Anyone wants to add anything to this?
I think that Bitcoin will be part of our daily transactions, as she says, without being in real notice. It's an excellent excellent payment system platform, yes, that can be overlaid with a lot of services that we just might use the platform and not really understand that we're using Bitcoin meanwhile.
I have two things.
Nice to meet you, Satoshi.
Yeah.
I have two things to say. The first one is that the thing that Bitcoin brings is a hope that we now know we can do it differently, so we don't need to be pessimistic. And the second thing I want to say is that we need proof from the gentleman here.
But I thank you for using my domain name as the name of the coin.
Who else is Satoshi Nakamoto here? Please, hands up. One. Yeah, okay.
That one.
Cool. Great.
That one. Okay.
So, more questions?
Honored.
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, I heard that Bitcoin is currently, first it's very volatile, which makes it hard to use. And the second thing is that it's still, the circulation is really tiny compared to the overall monetary amount that's around the world, right? And as soon as it becomes more significant, I think national governments will be very much tempted to suppress this in one way or another to keep control of money.
What's the question?
So how do you want to actually avoid that? Governments will suppress Bitcoin or any other of those virtual currencies?
I'll be happy to take that question. If you look at the total market value of Bitcoin today, it's $12 billion. And if you look at the amount of cash or the amount of currency that is used to service the world economy today, the total global world economy, it's about, in rough round numbers, about $15 trillion. So Bitcoin is 15 billion. The total world currency is about 15 trillion. So it's about 1,000 times more. So if Bitcoin was to become the global currency and replace absolutely all other currencies and nothing is used except Bitcoin, then Bitcoin would have to go up by about a factor of 1,000. But there's still more Bitcoins being mined. They're roughly going to double in the next 10 years. So, which means Bitcoin only needs to go up about 500 times and it'll be saturating the currency markets. So we are still far away from Bitcoin saturating the world economy. Right now, it's tiny. In fact, there's so few Bitcoins, the market value is so small that it's not worth it for a lot of financial institutions to even get involved. So it needs to go up a lot more before it's going to have a significant impact. Once it reaches some kind of stable level, it doesn't need to be saturated, but let's say 20% of global currency, it's going to be much more stable. And in fact, it's a logarithmic curve. It increased very quickly in the early days, and now it's slowing down. So it will become more stable over time.
Do you think that governments will try to ban it? I mean, how would you counteract that?
Well, let's look at other decentralized technologies. So instead of theorizing what's going to happen, let's look at what actually has happened. And a good example is BitTorrent. So first we had Napster. There was file sharing in the 1990s. Napster was one of the first file sharing companies, but it was centralized. So the government just needed to go to one place and they could shut it down. What then developed is BitTorrent, which is a decentralized file sharing network. And what has happened? The music and movie industry did everything in their power to stop it. They literally spent billions of dollars. They got governments to do very draconian enforcement. They came with SWAT teams and helicopters and broke down people's houses. I'm not kidding. And all of this has had zero effect. In fact, today, 40% of internet traffic is BitTorrent. That's how effective the attempts to stop it have been. Because it's decentralized, there is no point where you can go and stop it. The same is true for Bitcoin. If it's attempted, it's going to fail.
More questions? Gentleman in blue, maybe? Oh. Okay. The mic decides.
Question to Rodolfo. You spoke very eloquently about actually financial repression. Argentina has a history of dramatic financial repression. So there is a history of Argentinians being deeply disappointed by money. You know, trust in money doesn't exist. Looking at the volatility
in fiat money.
In fiat money. Whatever you want to define it. Looking at the volatility of Bitcoin, how are you going to defend that?
Okay.
To expose your fellow Argentinians to that same risk of disappointment?
That's a good question, and I've been talking yesterday about that also with Lucas. As I said before, we keep dollars under the mattress. So we keep on a eventually safer fiat currency, yes, or the gold under the mattress, I don't know. So we have eventually the same way to go than others. Before we are easier to understand the benefits of Bitcoin, you are harder to go and understand it because you don't lived inflation as we did, yes? So we understand the benefits of Bitcoin, but then the regular people has to decide to put, instead of dollars, to buy Bitcoins because they believe in Bitcoin, they already understand the benefits, and now that they do understand the benefits, they might be easier to understand why Bitcoin will succeed over other fiat currencies, not only about the pesos, over the pesos, but over fiat currencies. What happened to the pesos might happen to the dollars or might happen to other countries which now are very integrated. What happens in Spain affects Germany. So once you understand Bitcoin, which for us is easier, yes, you might also understand what happens with other fiat currencies. That's why Bitcoin is $1,000. It means that those who hold Bitcoins believe 1,000 times more than holding a dollar. Yes, and jumping into Bitcoin now, yes, is to take a risk. But it's a very intelligent risk when you understand the chances that Bitcoin has. It's not jumping over a reef, okay?
May we take one more question? We're a bit out of time, but one more? Okay, one question. I think gentleman was first, sorry.
My name is Georg Zoche from the United Transnational Republics. I love Bitcoin for being a non-national currency. But there's one big problem that I see. It combines the negative effects of gold standard being scarce with the negative effects of fiat currencies of having no intrinsic value. And there is a proposal that was developed by Sir Maynard Keynes in the 40s to make a global currency system where the value of the money was in the exchanged goods and not through mining. And my question was, how much do you know about the Keynes proposal? And is there an idea to develop a Bitcoin version that measures the outcome of people instead of computers that are mining?
You're probably mean the Bancor, that's what he called it, yeah? Yeah, there are attempts to make cryptocurrencies that are kind of fixed to a basket index, but I'm skeptical of whether that can work.
I would say I would say that currency always should reflect the effort of the people. You do things, you do an effort, and that effort, you keep it in currency, yes, for changing it for other things. So I think that what you are choosing is what you are doing with your effort. You are putting it in a currency that you believe, at least.
The question of inherent value often comes up, and I'm sure Peter can actually talk to this very well. But basically, there is nothing in the world that has inherent value. Nothing. Even gold has not inherent value. You always have to ask, what is the value to a certain person for what purpose? For example, exactly, if you want to survive, you need water, but some people want to kill themselves. Or oil. Oil was seen as a dirty, black, gooey thing until there was the invention of a car and it became useful for car fuel. And the same thing with Bitcoin. It's only useful because it has certain properties that make it useful. And those are inherent properties. So if you want to use the word inherent, those properties are inherent to Bitcoin. They cannot be changed. That is what makes Bitcoin useful. Just like gold has certain properties that make it useful for a certain purpose.
I think we have to leave. If you have more questions, we'll be around outside, so please come to us and we can talk in a decentralized manner. Thank you so much. Thanks to the